Hi, my name is Rose Berger. I'm an associate editor at Sojourners magazine, here with Jeannie Choi, assistant editor, talk a little bit about contemplative prayer, and to use Psalm 46 verse 10, "Be still and know that I am God," as an intro to contemplative prayer. So, Jeannie, what was your experience with contemplative prayer growing up?
Sure. Nil.
Nil?
Yeah, I didn't really learn about contemplative practice until I got to grad school. I did a program at Wheaton, and there are a lot of faith traditions represented in the student body, and so my experience was much more just an audience member, seeing a lot of different contemplative practices being used by other people. But it wasn't until a professor of mine at Wheaton kind of sat and taught us some simple ways to do contemplative practice that I actually had personal experiences with it myself.
And I think part of, at least what I have understood, is that contemplative practices of prayer and prayer styles have always been a part of Christian tradition, but especially during the Reformation, when there was a desire to sort of, by Luther and the whole Protestant Reformation, there was a desire to get rid of the things that were deemed Catholic. Then part of what happened was the church sort of lost a lot. There were some things that needed to be gotten rid of, and some things that needed to be kept.
Yeah.
And so one thing that I've noticed is that certainly in the Protestant tradition, there was a loss of a lot of this contemplative inner life.
Yeah.
But I have to say, also in Catholic tradition, while some of the contemplative life continued on in the experience of celebrating Mass, really it was carried on in the monastic traditions, which most Catholics don't have much contact with anymore.
That's interesting.
So now there's a chance, I think, you see a coming together, both in Protestant and evangelicals, and even in Catholics, wanting to return to that sort of deep experience of a contemplative understanding of God. And so, did you have, when you were at Wheaton, what kind of contemplative practice were you taught?
Sure. Yeah, there was one professor who taught us the method of Lexio divina, which we participated in by him providing to us certain passages from the Bible, and we would get into groups of 4 or 5, and we'd pass the verse around, and each of us would read it out loud. And it was interesting because people emphasized different words and different segments, different phrases touched each of us in different ways. And so just to meditate on those words as we were reading them was really incredible. And it was great to be able to view the Bible as not something that I need to necessarily extrapolate meaning out of, but to just find meaning in hearing the words being read aloud. And therefore, the reading of the passages became worship rather than a tool for worship.
Yeah. So I was thinking, since we're here in our sort of Sojourners prayer room where we gather for noon prayer and for other celebrations, maybe we can just practice this here and see how it goes. Is that right?
Yeah, you're going to have to hold my hand.
Well, the first thing, the Lectio Divina practice, really that's Latin for holy reading. And there's a method for doing it. It's what we call a fixed hour prayer usually. So it's usually an hour a day that you set aside. Sometimes it's a half hour in the morning and a half hour at night. And the way that the monks do it is that they set aside a particular time and a particular place. So not everybody does it that way, but sort of in the traditional way, you would say, okay, every morning at a certain time in my prayer place, I'm going to practice this kind of holy reading of the scripture. And then again, the way the monks do it, they are reading the scripture of the day that's set aside in the lectionary. But some people just choose a scripture passage that comes to them, or maybe they're making their way through the Bible in the course of a year, and so they read the passage that's available at that day. And in the monastic tradition, there's always this balance called ora et labora, work and pray, work and pray, work and pray. So the monks just do their manual labor, and then they stop and pray, and then they do their manual labor and they stop and pray. And to some extent, we can do the same thing. We do our labor here at Sojourners, making our little magazine and organizing our things, and then we stop and pray. And so it's a chance to live in that sort of a contemplative tradition. So I was thinking the passage that we could use is a few verses from yesterday's lectionary reading, which is from Isaiah 61. And but before we do that, usually before you do Lectio Divina, you do some sort of prayer practice to just help you change gears, to transition from your active world to a more quiet and contemplative world. So there's a very simple practice that I use that's pretty common from Psalm 46, which is just the verse 10 in Psalm 46 is, "Be still and know that I am God." Mm-hmm. So I thought we would use that to just relax ourselves, center ourselves in God, and then that'll be our lead-in to sort of doing the Lectio Divina with the Isaiah 61 passage. Is that okay?
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, so the biggest thing is just sort of to be in a relaxed and prayerful position. And sometimes, people hold their hands or fold their hands like this. The thing is just to put your body in a position that's relaxed and is open. And then to breathe in deeply a few times, just to breathe in and breathe out. And breathe in and breathe out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say that line from Psalm 46, and each time we repeat it, we're going to take one word off the end, and you'll see what I mean. But we'll say together first the whole thing, which is, "Be still and know that I am God." So let's say it together. Be still and know that I am God. Breathe in. Breathe out. Be still and know that I am. Breathe in. Breathe out. Be still and know that I. Breathe in. Breathe out. Be still and know that. Breathe in. Breathe out. Be still and know. Breathe in. So now, hopefully we find ourselves in a little bit more settled place. We're moving through this a little bit fast, but you do that, you can take a little bit more time, and then that sort of prepares our mind and heart for the Lectio Divina, which is also sometimes called feasting on the Word. And
I like that.
so there's 4 parts to it, and I'm going to try to remember them here. There's the Lectio part. So that's the reading. There's the meditation part, meditatio, oratio, and contemplatio. So reading, meditation, prayer, and contemplation. And there are 4 questions associated with each part. So with the Lectio of the reading, you ask the question, what does the scripture say? Mm-hmm. And with the meditation, you ask the question, what does the scripture say to me? Mm-hmm. And then with the oratio or prayer part, you ask the question, what do I want to say to God about this reading? And then with the contemplatio or the contemplation part, you ask God to help this scripture take root in your life, so that you can act